In this tutorial, we'll walk through how to build this scene from start to finish, step by step. To start, I've organized all the necessary assets into a folder to streamline the workflow. Next, I'll import the background and assets into the timeline and begin building the scene. Now, I'm going to ensure the background fits seamlessly with the scene. Follow my steps. I created this solid to simulate the sky, allowing me to extend the background further upward. Now, I'm masking the background and pushing it further to make sure it blends perfectly with the scene. As you can see, it's now perfectly blended with the solid, creating a realistic sky. Now, I'm going to add the remaining assets like the Red Bull can and clouds to set up the scene, and then we'll begin the animation process. At this point, you're free to adjust the scale and position as you like. If you want a result similar to mine, simply follow my steps. Next, I'm going to place the clouds into the scene, so follow my steps. Now, I'm placing the clouds randomly within the scene to make it look more natural and realistic. Now that all the clouds and the scene are set up, we can begin animating. The first step is to enable 3D on all layers so we can introduce a camera. Okay, after converting all the layers to 3D, I'll now drag the camera into the timeline. Now I'll connect the background to the solid, allowing them to move together. I'll push the background further back to create depth in the scene. As I mentioned, you're free to experiment with these values. I'm adjusting the scale so it properly fits the scene again. Now, I'm going to start animating the can. First, I'll add keyframes for both position and rotation to bring the movement to life. The idea here is to simulate the can dropping naturally from the sky, so I'll carefully adjust the timing and spacing between keyframes to make the motion feel smooth and realistic rather than linear or robotic. I'll also animate the camera by setting position keyframes and enabling it to follow the can throughout the movement. This will help keep the focus on the main object and create a more dynamic cinematic feel in the scene. By syncing the camera movement with the can's animation, we can achieve a more immersive and professional result similar to real motion tracking shots. We also need to animate the clouds, so I'll add position keyframes to all of them. This will introduce subtle movement into the scene and make it feel more alive and dynamic. Now, I'm going to select all the keyframes in my animation to make the movement smoother and more natural. By default, keyframes in After Effects move in a linear way, which means the motion looks robotic and unrealistic. After that, I'll open the graph editor, which is where we can control the speed of the animation more precisely. In the graph, I'll adjust the curve so that the movement starts faster and then gradually slows down toward the end. This kind of easing is very important because it gives the animation weight and realism, making it feel more like real-world motion rather than digital movement. Here, the distance between the keyframes is quite large, which is why the movement feels very slow. To fix this, we need to bring the keyframes closer together. Here, I'll mark the end of the first scene and make a cut. Now I'll make a copy of the can layer and use it to build the shadow. Here, I'll add a slant effect. I'm using the FX Console plugin. Just search for the effect and you'll find it easily. The slant effect is quite versatile and can be used for many different purposes. Here, I'm using it specifically to create a shadow for the can by tweaking the slant and height settings. Just follow my steps. As you see here now, we set up the color to be a black color as the shadow. To achieve a more realistic look, we'll add Gaussian blur, push the blur value higher, and lower the opacity so it becomes more subtle. At this stage, we'll tweak the shadow by animating its opacity so it gradually appears when the can nears the ground. Now I'm going to adjust the position of each cloud, making them slightly different from one another to create depth as we saw in the video. Okay, now I'm going to add the text and type "taste like." I'm going to play with color so it matches with the Red Bull can. Now I need to position the text so it sits behind the can. After that, I'll add a drop shadow effect and simply copy my settings. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate the text, write the second word, and place it behind the can slightly below the first word. I'll also match its color to the blue tone of the can. Now I'm going to animate the text. I usually use the Text Evo plugin for this, but I'll also show you an alternative method in case you don't have it. It's very simple. Just follow along and you'll understand it easily. Here, you're free to experiment with the graph editor or adjust the spacing between keyframes however you like. I'll apply the same process to this text as I did with the first one. For the shine effect that appears in the first scene with the can, I'm going to add a deep glow effect. If you don't have deep glow, you can simply use a standard glow effect instead. We'll also animate the exposure by keyframing it from a higher value to a lower one, creating a smooth reveal. You'll see how it works. Just follow along. Okay, the first scene is done. I'll just do some final tweaks and adjust the positions to make sure everything matches the intended result. As you can see, everything looks good now. We're done, and the final step is to pre-compose all the layers. For the second scene setup, I'm going to start with a gray solid. After that, I'm going to draw some blue lines to act as road markings. I'll create one line first, then duplicate it into 3 lines. Now I'm going to add dashes to the line. Simply go here, type dashes, and it will appear. After that, just copy my settings. And then repeat the same process for the other lines, just like we did with the first one. Now we'll add an expression. Just click the stopwatch, right-click while holding Alt, and the expression box will appear. Then type time, or your expression value, depending on the effect. By adjusting the number, you can control the animation speed. Higher values make the animation faster, while lower values slow it down. For this animation, I'll set the value between 800 and 860, as I found this range works best for this effect. I'll apply the same expression to all the lines and slightly adjust the values so each one looks a bit different. Now I'm going to add the Formula One car, adjust it to the scene, and animate it so it comes from the bottom, stops briefly in the middle, and then moves upward. Here in the graph editor, you need to copy my graph exactly to achieve the same result. The motion starts fast, slows down in the middle, and then continues moving back smoothly. At this point, we'll ensure continuous movement so the animation doesn't pause in the center and keeps going. Now I'm going to add the text and position it in the scene so it feels like part of the road. I'm going to experiment with the colors and adjust the text rotation to achieve a better look. I created a copy of the text, modified its color, and positioned it to match the composition. For now, I'll place the text behind the car by selecting both text layers and positioning them slightly below the car layer. To achieve the effect where the car passes and the text reveals, we need to create a mask on the text and animate its path. Follow my steps to understand it clearly. Here, simply play around with the keyframes until you get the perfect result. Here, I'm simply repositioning the car so it matches the text placement perfectly. I'm going to apply the same workflow as I did with the first text. Now I'm going to add a camera and convert all the layers to 3D to create a simple intro for this scene by animating the camera's position. Here, apply the same graph settings. I want it fast at the beginning and then easing into a slower motion. Here, I'll play around with the values to get the perfect trail result. Now I'm going to do a simple out-row transition. I'll add a null object, link it to the camera, and use a different graph, opposite of the first one, so it starts slow and then speeds up. Just follow along. Here, copy the same graph. Now we're going to pre-compose everything once again so we can move directly to the third scene. For the third scene, it's the easiest part. We just need to add a black solid layer, then add the text and animate it. This time I'll use Text Evo, but if you don't have the plugin, you can follow the same method I explained earlier. If you're not familiar with Text Evo, just follow what I'm doing and you'll get the same result. Now I'll enhance the motion by keyframing the text position and adjusting it a bit toward the bottom. And that's it. We're done with the third scene.